Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever. The only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, and with me as always, he's not wearing hockey pads, which I think I've done before. It's Anthony James.
I was literally just about to go, I'm not wearing hockey pads.
I'm almost certain I've done that introduction before. Anthony, how the devil are you?
Doing well, Konrad. Doing very well in Batman heaven this week, as you well know.
Yeah, well, we've been in Batman heaven for 6 weeks, because we
We're on the Batman stairway to heaven, I like to think of it.
Yeah.
We're finally in Batman heaven now, in my opinion.
Yeah, we've got there. We've reached the promised land. We paid our dues in the Joel Schumacher mines, and now here we are, emerging into the golden-hued Elysian fields of Christopher Nolan's Promised Land. We're here to talk about The Dark Knight.
Yes.
That Dark Knight, which I'm sure everyone's very excited about. It's whenever you talk about Batman, it's the movie that people are. It's probably the sort of consensus number one Batman movie. I think that's probably fair to say.
Well, I think, and even if you'd go by fan reviews online, it's consensus top 20 movies of all time, apparently.
Yeah,
so,
was that according to IMDb ratings?
Yeah.
So, yeah. Famously balanced IMDb rating.
Oh,
do you remember, we will get into it in a second, but do you remember
it's actually number 3, by the way. Number 3.
I'm trying to remember what movie it was, but there was like basically an internal war within the IMDb community, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, where some movie knocked The Godfather off of the number 1 slot.
Shawshank.
Was it? But it was it. I feel like it was a new movie. I feel like it was like Joker or something like that. You know.
And then everyone downvoted it.
Yeah, and basically like the IMDb the IMDb Godfather fan base like mobilized to be like, we're not having this. Like, everyone get your 10-star reviews in for The Godfather. We need to get it above whatever. It's so weird that exists.
I mean, Shawshank has been the number 1 on IMDb for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely crazy to me. Like, I love Shawshank, and actually it used to be like one of my top films. It still is. It's a really good film.
Yeah.
But the idea, I don't know, when you think of it, like, you have to choose one film as the best film of all time. Yeah. I don't know. I
definitely wouldn't be the Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption wouldn't even be in my top 50, probably.
I mean, We Bought a Zoo's nowhere to be seen, let's be honest.
No, exactly. Frank Darabont fucking wishes he could make We Bought a Zoo, but
exactly, yeah.
You know, there's not even a zoo in that movie. There's not even an animal, I don't think, in that movie.
There's a bird.
Oh, there is a bird. Well, an aviary. We bought an aviary. But we're not here to talk about Frank Darabont or We Bought a Zoo, or indeed Shawshank Redemption. We're here to talk about Batman. So, without further ado, let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
Let's do it.
Movies. We're here in the year of our Lord, 2008, to talk about the Dark Knight discourse. And I think it's fair to say that... I'm sure the discourse around this movie would have been enormous regardless, because it's a Batman movie and it's a very good movie. Yeah. But I think it's probably fair to say that there was something of a perfect storm, well, depending on who you're talking to, with the death of Heath Ledger, which pretty much dominated the release cycle for The Dark Knight, because there were like all kinds of like wild rumors circulating about it, ranging from like suicide to like foul play to Ledger being like so consumed by the role, by the role, which in fairness, by his own admission, did involve him like staying in a hotel room for like a month and keeping a diary to try and embody the character. But I remember hearing stuff about like, he'd gone to a cabin by himself and like taken a bunch of drugs, which I mean did contribute to his death. But
there's a whole mystery around his death even as well. Like, it's like, was it actually a genuine overdose, or was it was it like a mixture of prescription drugs from different doctors? Like, I can't actually, I don't even know if there's a definitive answer even on that.
I mean, there's a toxicology report which says he died because he had all these drugs in his system, but it's unclear where like what actually happened. But I think it's undoubtable that the sort of mythos that grew up around Heath Ledger's death lent this movie a sort of air of I don't know. It's almost like a legendary film. It's kind of like Enter the Dragon or something like that. You know, a movie that came out after Bruce Lee had mysteriously died and like became this cultural touchstone for a generation. And I think Dark Knight very much is that for our generation.
Yeah, you're right in saying it's a perfect storm, because not only did you have that air around it of like the mystery, as well as like, oh, he was so consumed by the role, so everyone wanted to see the role that killed Heath Ledger, you know. And like the thing is, since then it's come out, you know, that on the set, as soon as it said cut, like people who worked on the set, he would just pop back and he was Heath Ledger straight away in the makeup. It's not like he's this crazy method actor. You know, he was obviously trying to get into the character, but
he was doing like role preparation and stuff. But he wasn't like
role prepreparation. But I think it was
he wasn't Jared Leto, basically. That's what
he wasn't Jared Leto, and I think it was overplayed to a certain point, and everyone was it was like a pressure cooker. And this is the really interesting thing, is that when the pressure was released of the pressure cooker and the film came out, it didn't disappoint.
Yeah, that's the wild thing.
That's the wild thing, because it was really, even when the first trailer came out and you saw him and everyone was so excited for it, and it was such an air of importance around this film, and then it, like, you know, I don't think you maybe can say it's, I think if you really look at it, Cold Light of Day, is it top 10 films of all time? You know, who knows? Is there a way to rank films? Who knows? Is it like my favorite superhero film, and probably it always will be? Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
because of the situation, you can't really top it, in my opinion.
It's a phenomenal movie, and I think you're absolutely right to say that like kind of pressure going into the release, and then it came out, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is like not only is this a brilliant movie, but Heath Ledger's performance in it is." Deserving of Oscar contention. Like, it's such a good performance, and it's this fascinating blend of kind of like eulogizing and lionizing and mythologizing the process of filmmaking that just combined to make this really special movie. Obviously the movie would have been special anyway, but it just kind of elevated it a little bit further.
Like the performance itself, that's why I love it as well, is that his costume's great. Like his costume fits the character, and like he's got his like hair's really messy, and the makeup's quite poorly put on, and like there's a lot of consideration in that costume, but it actually is just the performance which makes it what it is. And I think that, you know, we ragged on Jared Leto there, but I think people trying to create like an iconic villain, I can imagine people going into the Joker or other bad guys in the superhero genres and thinking to themselves, right, I have a chance here to be Jack Nicholson. I have a chance to be Heath Ledger.
Yeah.
And I think that they overthink it, and then a lot's put into the aesthetic of their character, and then the performance is nowhere near. Heath Ledger is remembered, one, obviously because he died in the circumstances, but also two, because just the performance he gave was so amazing. Like, people don't love this Joker because he looked cool. I mean, he did look cool, but his performance and the way he talked and the way he delivered the lines was just amazing. You know, he was just so good.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll talk about the Joker as a character in a bit more detail slightly later. But so Christopher Nolan is back in the director's seat, back in the writing chair for the Dark Knight. The familiar faces are all back: Christian Bale, Michael Caine.
Not one of the familiar faces.
One is notable by her absence. Katie Holmes didn't want to do this one, so she is replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal for Rachel Dawes, which is probably one of the worst career decisions that Katie Holmes has made. I think it's fair to say.
It's true, and to be honest with you, as a recasting snob, it is the one bad thing about this movie.
Do you not like Maggie Gyllenhaal then as Rachel?
No, I love Maggie Gyllenhaal. I just don't like that it has the sort of the spectre, okay. The spectre of Katie Holmes in it. You know what I mean? It's
looming large.
The worst thing about this movie is something that isn't even in the movie for me. Yeah, and that just shows you how good the movie is.
So, yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I like. There's going to be a lot of this. If you don't like The Dark Knight at home, you're probably not going to enjoy this episode of the Best Movie Podcast ever, because both Anthony and I just gave your real name to some of the newer listeners there. Both Anthony and I.
It's like gold dust. Our real names are sprinkled throughout. You know. Yeah. If you want to go back, we've talked about it before. Go back and watch all our videos. You'll eventually find
it's not as interesting as it sounds. It's purely it was a business decision. We went into it was a pure business decision.
And also clarity decision. But we'll leave that up to you guys.
Yeah. both you and I absolutely love this movie. There's not going to be a lot of criticism of it, so if you are not in the mood for listening to two people fawn over The Dark Knight, this one might not be for you.
Yeah.
But with that caveat, or with that established, I think the opening of this movie is one of the strongest character introductions I have ever seen in a movie. You get the ticking clock motif in the score, which Hans Zimmer would reuse again on another Christopher Nolan movie in Dunkirk many years later. But it's just this amazing heist sequence to introduce the Joker, and it's just, but it's actually like a triple introduction, because you have the Joker introduction with the amazing "Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stranger" while he's talking to William Fickner or Feichner, I can never remember his name, as the mob bank manager.
Mahone from Prison Break season 2. That's
yes, absolutely. He always turns up in just things as that guy, and here
Chris
he is
Stoll's
again.
really good at having those random people. You're just like, what? Oh yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah, but there's like a triple introduction of characters here. So you get the amazing high sequence to "Whatever Doesn't Kill You Makes You Stranger," which is perfectly filmed on its own, and then you have the Harvey Dent at the trial, like Buy American, this like kind of blonde-haired all-American boy kind of introduction for that character, and then you get the Batman Scarecrow bust with the super gravelly voice now. Like, he's been taking some voice coaching lessons since Batman Begins, and he has arrived at the Batman voice we all know and love now.
Yeah, it's almost, we're approaching subtitle levels of Batman growl.
This is. In this movie, Christopher Nolan pushes his sound design and editing right up to the point of needing subtitles, and spoiler alert for next week, he might tip over it for the next movie. But yeah. So I mean, how did you find the reintroduction of Batman and like the Joker intro and the Harvey Dent intro as a kind of three-pronged introduction?
Yeah, no, I agree completely with you. I think this, also the situations in which they were sort of really highlighted each character. Like the Joker, you know, I loved just the setup of that with all the different clowns and the whole way they're talking about some guy called the Joker. You know, and
you know what's coming as well.
You know what's coming. He's definitely one of them. And he takes the mask. It's basically the Sting moment, you know, in TNA where he takes the mask off and he's Sting underneath. Like, I wonder where Sting got that from.
The insert gif of Sting the wrestler doing his Joker impersonation here. An awful moment for a dark chapter in wrestling history.
Yeah, but he takes his mask off and it's him. I agree. Harvey Dent, I think Aaron Eckhart was brilliant in that role. Sort of, I believe, to sort of the fall of Harvey Dent and where he started as like, as you say,
he's like a guy who works
American
within the system and is like very charming, very charismatic, and they really set him up to be an interesting character in this movie.
And I love that like the coin and fairness and stuff was his thing before he got half his face burnt. So he was like, I like as well that it was a normal coin, but then it wasn't actually.
That's a trick coin.
I'm thinking of a different depiction of how he did. But no, and then one side gets burnt. Yeah, that's right. But and then the Batman. I love the score that comes in with Batman. It's like do. You know, and I didn't realize until like when I was watching this again that is an iconic like sort of the Batman theme of this series. It's very understated compared to other Batman themes.
Yeah, it is.
But he does have one, you know, and I think and that moment where he comes in, they have the Scarecrow there. Got to get him in. He's got to be in all three.
The only
got to get him in.
Yeah, I was going to say the only character apart from Jim Gordon and Batman... Oh, I guess and Alfred, actually. So it's those four, I guess, that are in all three movies, which is...
Yeah, you got to get Cillian Murphy in. You got to get Michael Caine in somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I agree with you. Brilliant introductions, and it really set the table for what going forward.
Absolutely. And then, I mean, one of the things that I think this movie is so good at is that it's like two movies... Well, it's actually like three movies. I mean, you know, a lot of movies are built as like kind of 3-act structures, so it's not maybe it's kind of like kind of self-evident that that's going to be the case in a lot of movies. But there's three very kind of almost self-contained stories in this movie. You've got the sort of Chinese money arc, you've got the Joker arc, and then you've got the Two-Face arc, and they brilliantly blend into each other. But I think the thing that I love most about how enjoyable this movie is to watch is how rapidly they move. Like, they never really stop. So as soon as we get these introductions, we're into this Chinese money kind of act where you've got this character called Chin Han, who's like offering to take the gang money from the Gotham gangs to Hong Kong because the net is closing in on organized crime in Gotham, and they are like, we won't extradite, like, or China won't extradite one of their own back to the States. And just in that scene, like, you get so many iconic moments. You get like Joker's magic trick with the pencil, which is still one of my criticisms of this movie and of Christopher Nolan's Batman in general is that he doesn't really know how to get around censoring violence for the purposes of keeping an age rating a lot of the time. So sometimes he does these weird cuts where it's like, it's not really clear, and there's one in this movie actually a bit later, but it's not really clear what happened in some cases. But the magic trick is an example of the complete opposite, I think, where it's like, holy shit, that was so violent. Like, that's unbelievable that you've just got that one through.
It's terrific, because you know there was like a rumor that a child from some cereal advert did that to themselves.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not true. They've come out since and been like, they're an adult. They're like, I didn't do that. But like the whole like thing was that they put a pencil in their nose and then hit their head off the desk. That around that time when that rumor was going around, like, this film came out, and I was just like, that is crazy. Imagine Chris Nolan hearing that rumor about the cereal kid, and it's gonna taste great, you know. And then he's like, that isn't a brilliant idea. I'm putting that in a Batman movie.
We'll get the Joker to do that. I mean, it doesn't. I reckon you could try that 100 times and it would only work one time, because the rest of the time that pencil's fallen over the moment that eyeball comes anywhere near it. But still, it's a wonderful, like, visceral bit of violence. So we get that introduction. We then get the kind of Bruce and Harvey dinner scene, where Bruce continues to be a bit of he continues to play the character of these sort of like distant and kind of pompous billionaire, and you get there's so many quotable lines in this movie, but that's where you get you either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become a villain, which is basically the entire plot of this movie summed up in a single line. And I think that's the way that, like, Bruce, Rachel, and Harvey interact in that scene, I think is so crucial to establishing the motivations of all three characters throughout this movie that really carry it through, I think.
The trilogy of those are really, really good. Obviously, and actually, that's the strength of that relationship is actually a big point in the third one too. So it almost is building in character points for further films as well. And obviously we have, like, you know, that the culmination of that relationship. But yeah, I think it's believable. I think I understand why Bruce sort of felt that he still had a chance there, because I think there was still chemistry between the two.
Yeah, definitely.
It's just that, I say still, it's a brand new actress, so they got chemistry in the replacement actress, so that was good actually. But
they refound the chemistry. Somehow had been tossed away. So one thing I did just want to briefly touch on, the moment I was alluding to with the violence that doesn't really make sense. Is the bit when Joker, like, starts kind of cleaning up the gangs and, like, unifying them all under his banner. Yeah, well, the pool cues, but also the bit where he has, like, the knife in Gamble's mouth after he pretends to be dead to get caught, and he tells him the first of numerous stories about how he gets his scars, and he does the why so serious, and then it does the Hans Zimmer, like, doom, and it cuts to the face of one of his henchmen who kind of like winces, and then it cuts back to a wide shot and Gamble's lifeless body falls down, and I'm like, his knife was in his mouth, like, how did he kill him there? I know what you mean. Like, I always thought that he just put the knife in his mouth and then cut his cheek open. But why would that kill him? That wouldn't kill him. It's like, I mean, maybe he cut his throat or something, but it's just, it just stands out to me as a moment where, like, Nolan doesn't really know how to capture violence without showing violence, I think.
It might also just be a case of, like sometimes where you just need someone on the ground for the rest of the scene, so you just hit them a punch and they're knocked out.
Yeah, that's true.
It might be
the referee cell in wrestling.
Yeah, we need this guy dead. We want to have a nice culmination of the story. Let's just pretend cutting your cheek kills you.
Yeah, sure. Maybe there's a vein in there. I'm not a doctor. I don't know these things.
Well, there's definitely a vein in there.
Well, yeah, there's definitely veins. That's true. Otherwise, your cheeks would be very, very pale, I think. You didn't have any veins in there whatsoever. But so the Chinese arc, this is the bit that I really wanted to talk about with you. It culminates in what we like to call in the business an action set piece. And it probably was. I don't want to say that this was like filmed cynically, but whenever you see a scene set in China in a Hollywood movie, it's like, okay, they knew what they were doing here. Like, and it works fine.
Early adopters of the Chinese market.
Yeah, and it works fine in the context of this movie. So I'm not saying this is a criticism of it, but it is interesting that it's China, but it's this amazing, I guess, kind of a heist sequence again with his little like explosive gel gun and the sky hook and the fight in the office building. The second Batman fight in the first 40 minutes as well, which really stands in stark contrast to the first movie.
Well, actually, yes, you're right. That's interesting about, maybe that's why as well we view this as the best of the trilogy, because this has the most Batman out of any film out of these three. You know what I mean? He's Batman from beginning to end, and he's fighting it from beginning to end. Also, he's being he still does do a bit of the detective-y stuff too,
the detective stuff later in this movie is just fucking nonsense. Like that, we'll get to that when we get to the Joker arc. There is some quote unquote detective work in this movie that makes no goddamn sense.
Maybe the Chinese people taking the money to store it so that it's like the mob's money is safe. What is actually the stakes of that for the city of Gotham, though? That's why I think that it's probably the least. It's obviously it's partly Canto Bite, but I think it definitely does. It does not have the same weight as the other two storylines.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I mean, it's kind of setting up the other stories. The money is effectively a MacGuffin for them to be like, we're going to get all the crime in Gotham sorted out by getting this money. So it's kind of a means to an end. And as obviously going to be the case with Batman, Mr. Lau is captured, brought back to Gotham, and we basically kind of slip into the Joker arc there, and I really like how they delineate the Joker bit of this movie with the Chinese money bit with something that Christopher Nolan does use from time to time, and that's a jump scare where they've got Mr. Lau in custody. They're going to round up all the criminals. Harvey Dent's going to agree to prosecute them, and the police commissioner, who is has an amazing line. I don't think it's quite at this point. No, I'm not sure when it is in this movie, but there's Gordon is talking to him in his office, and he goes like, "Gordon, what are you up to?" And it's just and it makes me laugh because I know that he's British because he was in the. Did you ever watch the Fast Show, the sketch comedy from the late 90s?
No.
Okay, he was in that with Paul Whitehouse. And it just really makes me laugh that he's now an American police commissioner in this movie. But a great line read. And anyway, he's doing something in his office, and then the body of one of the Batman imposters, who is wearing hockey pads, swings down into view, and that's the moment where it's okay, no, the stakes have been raised here, and this isn't going to be as clean as you think it's going to be.
Yeah. Well, the stakes is an interesting thing you say, actually. Because overall, the stakes of this movie, interestingly, aren't as high as the first one.
No, so that's true.
And I suppose it's because the Joker is he's an agent of chaos, and he just is going through the world, doing things as they come to his head, and he just So maybe he just doesn't have an overall plan of how to destroy Gotham.
Yeah. He's a dog chasing a car.
He's a dog chasing a car. So there is it's funny that isn't it? Because there's less stakes than there is in Batman Begins. Having said that, it's in a way I think more compelling, and you want him to fail more.
Well, it's all about the kind of soul of Gotham, really. You've got Batman and Harvey Dent as these two competing ideologies for what the future of Gotham is going to be. Can it function as a city within the confines of, you know, the legal and judicial systems that have so far failed it, or will it always rely upon Batman being there to fix the corruption? And I think you're absolutely right. Like, there's no but there's no like city destroying MacGuffin at the end of this that's going to kill everyone in Gotham. It's a very, very personal story between between Joker, Harvey Dent, and Batman, and Commissioner Gordon. And two boats as well. So just to like touch on a couple of things in the Joker art, then I wanted to get your opinion of. So you get the video of the Joker torturing the guy, which is legitimately chilling as a kind of reintroduction. It's like a refresher course. Like,
Heath Ledger directed that scene.
Oh, did he? That's interesting. I didn't know that. Like, well, I mean, he looks like he's shooting it as well, because obviously he's speaking from behind the camera a lot of the time. So it wouldn't surprise me if he had a handheld camera that he was shooting it from. But that's legitimately chilling. We get the amazing Alfred's Burma story with, again, another quotable line of "Some men just want to watch the world burn." That has become. I mean, this movie is just infinitely quotable. Like, it's
the
amazing.
most quotable line from any film in my life ever was me and my brother-in-law always quote to each other, and he's listening to this. Hello, Dan. We always say to each other, "Never, never, never."
It's a great line, a great stiff upper lip moment from Alfred.
I think Michael Caine is sometimes he's just he's putting it on. You know, like where you're from has an accent, right? Everyone has an accent, so just sometimes as a joke, you'll like when I'll put on a really Australian, "G'day mate, how you going?" You know, I'll put a really Australian accent on as a joke, or like a Northern Irish accent on as a joke. I feel like Michael Caine's making fun of himself as a Cockney all the time. Yeah, well, yeah, he is. Like, and he's not always. In this, he definitely has that kind of like old East London kind of accent, but he can do posh as well. But it's no, he can. Yeah, it's like he's just. It's really, really over the top, but I don't mind it. Like, you know. You pushed him, masturbate. He sounds like oh fuck, what's the driver from Thunderbirds called? Like Miss Penelope's driver. Oh, I don't know. Hello, milady. That's what. I can't remember. Yeah. I mean, it's obviously not the same kind of tone of voice, but that's the way he speaks. He's like, "I shall bring the car around, milady." There you go. I didn't think I had that impersonation in me, but I'm quite pleased. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, I'll stick that one in the back pocket for next time I need that impression. Okay, so two things for the Joker art that we have to kind of, or three things in fact we have to touch on. First off, party scene as Gordon and Dent kind of close the net. We get the party scene intercut with footage of the judge who's going to prosecute the criminals and the police commissioner both dying. Police commissioner drinks acid or some shit, and the judge gets blown up, and the party scene with the Joker like kind of looking for Bruce Wayne, telling Maggie Gyllenhaal about his scars. That's a great scene for the Joker as well. Some real great acting from Heath Ledger there. Yeah, and this is one of the scenes which really highlights the great acting, because obviously there's things happening in the scene which means every take's going to be slightly different, and he has to improvise a little. So like when he grabs the flute of champagne and it all falls out, and he still tries to drink it, you know what I mean? There's a load of like little character moments that he sort of improvises on the spot, which are great. I think this scene, weirdly, he's arriving at the party, you know, I think this is actually one of the most, you know, iconic scenes of the whole thing. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, the idea, because it's just him basically. It's like him acting to. I mean, you know, other characters are there, but for the most part, he is carrying the scene, and his performance is so magnetic that it's just so memorable. And then obviously they also have the classic, you know, cars break falls as well. Oh, another textbook example of that in this movie with the pillowy nature of cars in Gotham City allows Batman to save Rachel Dawes. Why did that come from? Was it the Fast and the Furious movies that started that? Because they do it all the fucking time as well. Like, no, I remember it. I've remembered that for a very long time. The two things, you know, I remember from even my childhood watching films where either someone falls on a car, or the second thing is that they fall through a load of those awnings, you know, canopies or awnings. Yeah. That's another. Those two things are how you break your fall.
I mean, I wouldn't want to try it, but I could believe that several awnings in a row could break your fall.
Slow you down. Yeah, they'll slow you down.
But like the car thing, like once upon a time, you'd watch movies like, I don't know, The Omen or something, where someone gets thrown out of a third floor window into an ambulance, or through the top of an ambulance, and that kills them, because obviously it does, because it's made of metal. Like it's not gonna cushion your fall at all. But like these days, like you watch the latest Fast and the Furious movie, and there's a bit where Vin Diesel flings himself from a fast moving car to catch Michelle Rodriguez in midair. They're all going at like 100 miles an hour at this point, and then he kind of like cradles her like a newborn child and lands with his back in the windshield of another car.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not how cars work. They don't just like cushion, like glass doesn't react like that to the body of
like the thing as well is man. Like, how fast was he moving? Right, so was he moving? He was moving at 100 mile an hour through the air. The car was going 100 mile an hour back the other direction. Yeah, he hit that thing with the force of moving 200 miles an hour,
and he was fine. He just walked it off. It was like at least I love it. It's one of my favorite tropes.
Stationary, at least the car's stationary, so you're not. It's only your force you're bringing into it. He's got his force and the car coming at him.
It's great. I don't know if anyone has any ideas where that trope started, let us know, because I love that trope. It's so fucking stupid. Speaking of stupid things, this is what we needed to get to. We're going to have to spend a minute on this. The magic bullet fingerprint technology, the detective section of this movie. Okay, so I'm going to run through what I think he's doing here, and then you stop me when you think that you've made sense of this. So he matches the bullet impact from a crime scene. I can't actually remember who's been killed. He's looking for the Joker. I think it's is it like the cop or something like that? Like someone's been killed in a or was this, like there was an attempted killing. He matches the bullet impact by taking the brick and then going and getting a different gun and firing different kinds of bullets into bricks. Matches the impact, and then from the impact that he has, he recreates the bullet via some kind of imaging software, and is then able to see the fingerprint on the bullet before it was loaded into the gun and obliterated against a wall. Now, I don't think that technology exists. I'm going to be honest with you.
I wouldn't even really call that a technology. That's more of a process.
Well, yeah, but it's just magic. It's just magic.
So is the idea that because he had the size of the bullet, that he could then 3D map the inside of the hole that it made, and then that left the grooves within, like, because we're talking about oil here. So would oil on the outside of a bullet leave an imprint in brick? Yeah, or like
alter its flight path enough that you could like identify it in some way. And the answer is no. It's clearly the answer is no to that question.
I mean, that's amazing.
This is the detective portion of the movie.
But was the bullet not in? Did he not have the bullet though?
Yeah, but it shattered into like a million pieces because it hit a brick wall. So there's probably nothing of the it's literally just the impact. So he basically needed to. I think what he was doing with the gun was recreating the impact so he could get like the little shell casings. Okay, so Zoom has just kicked us out, so we've moved to Discord. I'm going to peel back the curtain for this because we're right midpoint there, and there's no. I don't want Anthony to have to like creatively edit around that. So we got kicked off.
Why has Zoom? Sorry, can we just one thing? Why has Zoom started having a time limit on 2 people talking?
Yeah, they want that money. They want that sweet paper for like the working from home and podcasts.
Zoom will hopefully not be around much longer then, if that's the case.
That probably someone like Microsoft will probably buy it, and then it will just like disappear into oblivion as it gets like merged with Teams. But anyway, so like what we were saying was the bullet fingerprint technology tech is nonsense. There's no way that works, and that is if you're coming to these movies for detective stuff. That's your lot. That's what you're getting out of that. Like it.
I mean, at the same time, it's pretty good. For a movie detective, I love it. Like I
love that he just has a rail with a minigun on it in the middle of his like warehouse of Batman stuff. That he's like, I might need this sometime. Like I live with a fair amount of clutter in my life now because I've got lots of things that I might need at some point. But even I don't have that level of clutter.
Yeah, I will say I noticed actually something watching these 3 films again. For a man who has a rule against killing people with guns, he certainly has a lot of guns.
Yeah, he has a huge amount of guns.
He doesn't actually have actual guns, but he puts guns on things You know, like,
yeah, I mean, I do think he's got, because by the third movie, he's definitely killing people with guns, as much as he might claim that he doesn't. But do you think that he has maybe a rule where, like, if the gun is on a bike or a tumbler, that's not technically him killing them?
Yeah,
That's the car.
If it's a gun that you can buy at a gun show, he's not.
He refuses.
He's not. Like he doesn't. Yeah, he doesn't like.
He has some
way,
standards.
He doesn't like the way the gun laws are, and he wants to change them. So. Yeah. He doesn't actually ever be seen holding an actual gun that a consumer can buy.
He doesn't need the bad optics of that. But stick a fucking rocket launcher on a bike. He's like, oh, no problem. What if I need to blow a hole in a wall?
No one's buying that at Walmart.
No, exactly. Yeah, he has his own. Him and Lucius Fox have their own little dirty deal there. But so okay, speaking of gun bikes, then the Joker arc kind of comes to a conclusion with the pretty stunning, like, another set piece again of, like, the mayor assassination attempt. It has Gordon's death. It has Dent handing himself in as the Batman. Mm-hmm. There's the chase sequence where they're taking Dent to prison with the debut of the Bat bike. I mean, it just goes the end of that act, like, it's just non-stop.
Yeah, and the Bat bike coming out of the
tumbler
was really cool.
Yeah.
One thing I'll say about the Bat bike, right? Again, very little I have to say negative about this film at all. But this Bat bike, love the design, love how it came out of the tumbler. But I've just always found with this Bat bike, it just always looks slow. It doesn't, and because they're really driving it, and they've just never convinced me in a shot of it that it's not just going 40 mile an hour.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah, I do know what you mean. Like, there's not. You get it with the tumbler as well. Like, you never really get a great sense of speed from it. Probably because it's not actually going that fast, I would assume, because it's all practical. But I mean, you do get the debut of missile or, like, rocket launchers or explosive warheads or whatever it's using on the side of it. You also get there's weird little moments of comedy in these movies. So you get, like, the sort of comic relief cop who sat next to the masked SWAT guy driving the van, who will turn out to be Jim Gordon, who is just like, he's basically giving, like, a running commentary on what's going on. And when the helicopters turn up and then get fucked up by Wyatt, he's like, okay, that's not good. And it's like, fucking Joss Whedon write this script, like, scene? Why is this guy, like, quipping like, in this terrifying situation?
What do you think about, like, the practical lorry flip, though?
That is so goddamn good. Like that, and then the "come on, I want you to do it" scene immediately after,
which does seem like it's in some sort of way a callback to Jack Nicholson standing in front of the bat plane, being like, "Come on."
Yeah, I think so. There's definitely
there's nothing crazier or more unhinged than standing in front of a plane or a car and saying, "Come on, I want you to do it."
Yeah.
So or a motorbike or whatever. But yeah, like that practical effect of tipping the lorry, actually in a city.
Yeah,
with buildings on either side, that is absolutely mind blowing that they did that. Yeah. I love the fact, I'm a big advocate for Chris Nolan's style of, like, you know, trying to do as much practically as possible. I think that, you know, sometimes maybe these days day and age you might think it's a bit more trouble than it's worth, but but I to be honest with you, it means that, like, this film will not age, you know,
because that actually happened.
That actually happened, you know, and it's not going to age in the same way that, like, certain elements of the Joel Schumacher ones have, where there's CG in them, and, like, you know, Batman floating around with his cape and all looks very CG, and the massive statues are quite very obviously CG. This isn't really going to age, you know, and I love that about it.
It is, and there's a few of them in these movies. There's one in the next movie that I can't wait to talk about. But yeah, it is a stunning bit of like technical action work there to shoot that the way they did, to capture it the way they did. It's just, it's amazing. It really is amazing. And it ends with Joker being taken into custody, and we get the first scene of Joker and Batman fully head to head, kind of, and it's really, although it's like an interrogation scene, it's really more of like a clash of ideologies, because they're talking more than they're fighting, and it's just I like this scene is so goddamn good. Like the bit where Jim Gordon, like, turns the lights on and Batman's been stood behind Joker the whole time, and it's just like, shit, here we go. And the Joker dialogue, like, ending with "I'm not a monster, I'm just ahead of the curve," like, and it sort of, it perfectly encapsulates what he's trying to do to these three men in Gordon, Dent, and Batman. And this is for me is one of the best scenes in the whole movie, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think that it's also like it's a scene which is going to be, it's a scene which is sort of going to be copied, and even like the idea of like, I think it was in the new Batman one with Robert Pattinson as well. They had a moment where he went to see the Riddler, and I think that they did a really good job with that as well.
Yeah,
and it was a really good scene.
They were definitely trying to capture something similar to this.
But I was still thinking when that happened, I was like, oh, but they're not really going to top that one,
Yeah, like that sense, like you get this interrogation between Batman and Joker. Then he runs off because of the Harvey Rachel choice that he has to make. Meanwhile, you've got the dude being like, "My insides hurt," and it's like, come on, don't put like he take him away from the other prisoners, guys. Like, read the room a little bit here. And Joker doing the "would you like to know which of your friends were cowards" bit. Like, this entire movie up until this point, you get this sense that Joker has planned every single aspect of this, and it's all going according to plan. And I agree, you didn't really get that from the Riddler in the new movie. Like, that big escalation at the end of that movie, while cool, I was like, I've not got the same sense of like Batman desperately fighting against a genius here. Like, it's
it's quite interesting actually, because I know we're not really doing that Batman, but the Robin Pattinson Batman, for me, that idea that all the followers came out and were shooting people at the end, for him, that I understand when people say it came out of nowhere. I think for me it wasn't though. Because whenever they showed him having a little following on thing, I knew from the moment they showed him having like a little following online or whatever, the Riddler, I knew what they were doing. Yeah. I knew they were doing this the sort of cult of personality who's like gonna. I understood the political thing they were doing from the beginning, and therefore it didn't come out of nowhere for me. Yeah. But I completely get why people thought that if they didn't clock onto that.
In a way, I guess it's scarier as well. This idea that these people will, like, at the drop of a hat, like, resort to this, even if they haven't been like actively involved before.
It's like whenever you have like the shooters and all, they have the manifestos, and you can just imagine the people they're listening to all the time, like, corrupt their brain. Obviously, the people they're listening to are a little bit more cloak and dagger than the Riddler. So it's really, say he's gonna kill everyone. But no, I know what you mean. It's weird because it's really chaotic, this film, but at the same time, he obviously did plan to get caught. I think that's clear. I also think that like the dialogue about would you like to know which one of your friends was a coward, all great stuff. And also I like that you got him without his jacket on as well, just a costume point as well. I like the shirt that he's wearing.
You get the waistcoat.
You get the waistcoat and you get the shirt.
Possibly a precursor to the return of the waistcoat in the late 2000s, thanks to England manager Gareth Southgate repopularising.
Oh, what a legend! What a legend!
In 2016. Okay, so very quickly then, like, because we could talk for so long about this. The Dent and Harvey and Rachel choice. How do you feel about Christopher Nolan not even giving Rachel the final goodbye speech? Because I fucking love that. Like, she sort of is literally cut. Her last words are cut off mid-sentence as she's blown up.
That's realistic to me. It's not something which he carries forward throughout all of his films. I mean, Christopher Nolan is. It's filmmakers in general.
He can be sentimental sometimes.
He does fall into sometimes like a character saying something, their last word then dying. That does happen a number of times in his movies, as it does with any filmmaker, because it's sort of a powerful moment. But this time he doesn't do that. No. He actually just has her get blown up before.
Just blown up halfway. Don't even know what she was gonna say.
I mean, it's tricky on old Joker there, because like Joker isn't Harvey Dent. If that was, he isn't Two-Face. So let's imagine in a world like Two-Face was already Two-Face and it wasn't Harvey Dent locked to the barrels. If Two-Face gave someone that choice, I think it would actually legitimately be that choice. Yeah. Whereas Joker's not Two-Face, so he switched them. You know what I mean? And I think that's switcheroo. I think that's really cool. I also like whenever Batman realized that they were switched, he still saved Harvey, obviously.
Well, I suppose he didn't really have a choice at that point.
He didn't have a choice, but I mean, I like that he didn't skip a beat. You know what I mean? He went in, he saw Harvey, he's like, you're out. It's like Chris Nolan didn't even give you a moment of Batman pondering the fact that it was a mistake. He just went in and got him, and I love that as well.
Yeah, and when you think about it, he probably knew at that point what that meant for Rachel. That he got, because he'd obviously gotten there first. I love how I love that it doesn't dwell on that. I also there's a single shot in this which I really wanted to highlight where when Dent falls over and it cuts to or it changes perspective to like a vertical shot, but he's lying on the ground, so he's kind of flipped 90 degrees, and you could see like half of his face being like covered with the gasoline or whatever it is while he's on the ground, and it's just such a striking shot for what is about to happen to Harvey Dent, and it just. Yeah, it's an amazing bit of cinematography. It really is.
It was brilliant. And I remember as well, when I first went to see this film, I think I went to see it like one of the opening nights, so it wasn't confirmed that he was going to be Two-Face in this film. Obviously, we knew Harvey Dent was in it, and we knew, but like maybe it was setting up... A lot of people, I think, in the lead up to this film kind of thought maybe that he was setting him up as the bad guy for the third one.
That's what I was going to say at the beginning with the 3 arcs, that like you could have probably ended this movie... I wouldn't have ended it quite the way they did, because obviously there's a lot of loose threads, but you could have probably ended this movie after the Joker bit, and it would have still been a perfectly good movie.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why I even watching it, how late we were getting into it with no Two-Face. I was thinking, okay, well they're saving Two-Face for next time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they didn't, and I think the film's way better for it. I think like even though they could have, I think that. No point in that last half an hour of the film am I thinking to myself, they should have ended this. I'm not thinking that at all. I think it does really work,
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Harvey Dent is the monster that Joker created, and you sort of needed to see it,
Yeah, I mean, and Gotham loses its or Harvey Dent's vision of Gotham loses in the confrontation, which makes the choice that Batman has to make at the end of this movie much more impactful, because not only does he accept at the end of this movie that his way of doing things will have to continue for longer, this extrajudicial punishment, because the systems in place and the people working within them can't be trusted, and like the toll that takes on his body and his relationships and his mind. But also by the end of this, he has to also be a villain, because those systems that Harvey Dent wanted to work within have turned against him. It's such it just the characterization and the themes in this movie are so well realized.
But also, I love the nice edge of it is too much for Harvey Dent's image to be tarnished for the future of Gotham, and like that setup going into the last, seeing what they did in the third film now. It's crazy. Like whenever I was like a teenager, no one actually knows this on the channel. I made a video. A Two-Face theory video, which I thought he might still be alive, and I had a couple of points why he might still be alive. That's my first ever theory video I made.
Oh, nice.
And back in the pre-monetization days of YouTube, I got like 10,000 views on it. And
seek that out.
Seek that out. Maybe I'll upload it on the channel. It's all nonsense now, because obviously he came back, and the quality of it as well is really crap, because I was doing it on this really bad laptop that costs like £100. But
okay, nice.
Anyway,
the original YouTube experience.
Yeah, but seeing what they did, and I was like a 15, 16-year-old or a 17-year-old, but seeing what they did with the third one, and they moved the third one. Harvey Dent is so important to that film.
Yeah.
It doesn't it doesn't make any sense why I thought he might come back now when you go back and watch the end of The Dark Knight, knowing what they did in Dark Knight Rises. It's like, well, clearly they told us exactly what they were going to do at the end of this film.
Yeah, like he becomes a symbol in a way that Batman they think he can't be, because he's a vigilante. So before we get to that sort of final Two-Face confrontation, then a couple of things I wanted to just touch on. The sonar tracking thing feels quite I'm sure they could do this to a certain extent in 2008, but it feels quite pedestrian by the standards of modern kind of monitoring of civilian populations by governments and corporations.
Well, like this was still a pre-smartphone world, wasn't it?
Well, 2008. No, we had smartphones they weren't as smart, but we were definitely getting
like
there.
Blueberries or Blackberries or whatever.
Blueberries. That was the knockoff.
No, but like the iPhone. What did the iPhone come out in 2009 or something?
I think iPhones existed by this point. I think the first iPhone was probably like 2006.
Maybe. iPhone 1 date. I'm maybe you're right. I don't know.
But I mean, you're definitely right.
2007. Okay. So when the film was written, they didn't exist.
Yeah, it was like nascent, but it's just funny looking at it, and like Lucius Fox being like, as long as this exists, I won't work here. It's like, this is fucking child's play compared to like how we're tracked now in everything that we do, not even just where we go. But I thought that was interesting. I also think, how did you feel about the weirdly comedic sequence with the Joker dressed up as a nurse going to visit Harvey Dent in hospital, and then walking away and like ballsing up the explosion. Like it's such. It's great.
That was an improvised moment, apparently.
Oh really? What? Because the explosion took too long to go off, or?
I watched a few videos about this, and maybe I'll get details wrong here. So anyone in the comments wants to sort of fill us in on the actual details, but I'm pretty sure that was a one and done shot where they were actually blowing up all the stuff, right? And I don't think if his thing actually was the button for it, but I think it was supposed to go off when he clicked it. It didn't go off. It didn't go off, so then he improvised the tapping of it and all, and then it did go off, and he went, "Oh God!" and he got in the bus. So he knew that he had to keep going because it was a one shot. Yeah. So he didn't break character. He kept going, and I think that was in part improvised. That part.
Oh well, I mean, what a moment of improvisation if it was, because I mean that entire scene. Like he looks ridiculous, and it's very funny, but it's like, and I think it's important to have those kind of moments because it establishes why people would follow the Joker. Because if he was just like a psycho all the time, the question would always be there, like, why would anyone follow this guy? Like, he's burning all your money. You know, he's not paying you. So I don't know why you'd follow him. But
him jumping and sliding down the pile of money is so
good. Yeah, that's great. Do you know what that reminds me of? Is the scene in like season 4 of It's Always Sunny where Charlie finds the Alibaba sword in the dump and he like jumps down the trash and he like does like the really offensive yell and then jumps down the trash and just like spitting as he does because he's getting trash in his mouth. It reminds me so much of that. It's a great moment. But so we get the we get the sort of birth of Two-Face. How do you feel about the CGI on Two-Face's face or the burn?
See, that's the part which might age eventually. Yeah. But I think the actual design of what they did was really good, though. I think I liked it. I liked it. Looked new. It wasn't like just purple. How did that even happen? Like the Two-Face we've seen before.
It's very acid. I don't know, toxic waste, something like that.
Like I don't know. This has felt. It's weird to say this, but it felt more realistic. You know, that's the thing about Chris Nolan films is he tries to make things realistic, but at the same time, it's like even when he does something which is clearly not possible in real life, he still puts a spin on it, which is like. Okay, like that still looks kind of real, you know what I mean?
Let's make this real. Yeah, absolutely, I think so. So we'll get into the sort of
the
finale.
Eyeball is terrifying.
The eyeball is horrible, and the way when he opens his mouth and you see like tendons stretching behind his teeth, it's like oh fuck, that looks painful. Okay, so we'll get into the finale in a second. I just wanted to briefly touch on the boat sequence, which is a great moment because with the bombs, because we get Tiny Lister, also known as the President of Earth in Fifth Element, and Zeus, the wrestler who wrestled Hulk Hogan in some movie that I can't remember the name of, but he's the one who chucks the bomb controller out the window at the end of the prison ship.
Yeah.
So lovely to see him. We also get, I wanted to get your opinion on this. Harvey Dent, I don't know what kind of car it was, but he definitely trusts the seatbelt in that car because, like, when he gets in the car with Eric Roberts and he like does the does the coin flip for him and it's like, okay, it's your lucky day, and then does it for his driver and says, not for him, who your driver puts the seatbelt on, shoots the driver in the head. It's like, seatbelts are good. Don't get me wrong, we should all wear seatbelts, but they're only going to protect you from so much. Like, you know, like
that is nuts.
Like, if that car like flies into a river, like you're just like there's no chance.
Like I do understand. I get that they're trying to portray that he just doesn't care now. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, was that your mission there, Harvey? Like you left the hospital just to go and kill Eric Roberts' character? That's all. Like you don't have higher hopes here. Like why risk that? Like why risk dying when he wanted to eventually get to Batman or get to Gordon and Batman, Gordon, you know. Anyway, at the same time, it is quite funny. Yeah, it is very funny, but it's just like, come on, you haven't thought that one through, have you? You're very lucky. But so we finally get to after Batman takes down a bunch of SWAT teams who are about to kill some hostages, captures the Joker, and we get the amazing shot of him hanging upside down, saying, "I've got a feeling you and I are going to be doing this forever," which is very poignant, I think, given... Yeah, and very sad because very sad because when we were watching it. Yeah. And then we finally get the confrontation between Two-Face, Batman and Jim Gordon, with Batman ultimately getting shot, tackling
Two-Face to the ground several stories below. There wasn't a car there, unfortunately, this time, so the Harvey Dent was killed by the ground, which is harder than a car. And then Batman runs away, and we end with one of the great denouements for a movie with the, we'll chase him because he can take it, and then his son saying, but he didn't do anything. Why? Because he's the hero Gotham deserves, but not the one it needs right now. Just a stunning end to a movie. And then Batman flees into the night, hunted by the people, the people and police of Gotham. I mean, what an end to a movie.
I agree with you. It's absolutely fantastic. One of the points I had as a 17-year-old why Two-Face might come back is because when he flipped the coin and then Batman tackled him, it landed heads up.
Oh, okay.
Of course,
nice.
as an adult, reflect upon that now. That was the flip for Gordon's son, wasn't it? So actually, it was never for him anyway. But yeah, so that was a really cool moment. You're right. There should have been a car there. In the past, maybe
surround all buildings in Gotham with cars, and no one will ever die from falling ever again.
That's what should have actually been there in Batman Forever. Whenever Robin's family fell, it shouldn't have been a net. They should have had a load of cars underneath the wire. But yeah, no, brilliant end to the film. I think that really, really well set up for the next one. It is obviously sad. Like, I think they did plan. There was plans in the next one. I think for Batman. I think what they were going to do. I think there might be details if I'm getting wrong, but I think what they were going to do next was they were going to have the Riddler be the bad guy, and they were going to have Batman trying to catch him, and Batman would have had to go to Arkham to talk to the Joker.
Or do like a kind of Silence of the Lambs, like Hannibal Lecter sort of thing. Yeah.
Talk to the Joker about how to catch him. And then obviously the Joker would have probably escaped, and then it would have been like Joker and the Riddler causing havoc for the last act. Which is interesting because that's kind of what they tried to do in the new Batman. Where they have a deleted scene where Batman went to talk to Barry Keoghan, who is going to be the Joker. And it's interesting that because like that for me almost confirms that was the plan, because unless there's a comic book reference there that I just don't know, which is being drawn upon by the Robert Pattinson Batman as well as Chris Nolan's original plan for the third, because that seems like maybe it's something that's been in all like the higher ups in Warner Brothers now have been thinking about it since the third one was planned. Yeah, and so now this time they had a story. Missed
opportunity.
Like, they're saying like maybe we should have the Joker and he'll go and visit him in Arkham because like that's what Chris Nolan wanted to do.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why it's always been kicking around, but I think that would have been really cool. I think we definitely would have seen Heath Ledger as the Joker again in the third one if you
he's definitely conspicuous.
Maybe he could have been the
absence.
Scarecrow Judge guy. He could have been the Scarecrow Judge.
Absolutely. But yeah, no, he's definitely conspicuous by his absence in that third movie, which we will get to next week.
Yes.
But so okay, rating time. What are you giving The Dark Knight out of 5 if pushed?
So what did I? 5-star. Come on.
Yeah, come on. It's a 5-star movie. There's anyone who tells you otherwise hates fun. I think because this is just.
Well, IMDb tells us otherwise because they say it's 9 out of 10. Come on. 10 out of 10.
Come on. If this doesn't get 5 stars, I don't know what does. Honestly, because it's like it's perfect. It's a perfect. Like everything this movie tries to do, it does pretty much perfectly. Like there's nothing I can fault about it.
And this is why this is crazy, right? This is why as much dominance that Marvel has, I never ever discount DC, because although a lot of this like sort of university stuff they're doing is bad, they can always pull out like the best DC films are better than the best Marvel films. That's just how it goes. The average of each. I think
historically, I mean, I definitely put Dark Knight and the original Superman and Spider-Man 2 and I think Avengers Infinity War are probably my favourite.
Some of those late Avengers ones were very good as well, but I just think like having a character like Batman, you're always capable of having this just amazing film which it sort of transcends the superhero genre.
Oh yeah, definitely. He should have. I think it was criminal that this people talk about Black Panther not getting an Oscar nomination, and instead, or it did eventually, but like how it apparently wasn't going to get an Oscar nomination and it was instead going to be nominated for the best popular Oscar or whatever that they were talking about creating. This should have had a Best Picture nomination, and I don't believe it did, because it's a superhero movie and people kind of look down their noses at it. And it's like, this is a phenomenal movie. Like, it's not. I mean, I hesitate to even really call it a superhero movie. Like, it has a guy in a costume in it, but it's really like a character drama more than anything else. That just happens.
It just shows you what the potential is, and unfortunately for filmmakers these days, Chris Nolan with this movie in particular, the trilogy I would say as well, but this movie in particular has set the bar so high.
Yeah.
You
like,
know,
this is the movie your superhero movies are going to be compared to from now on, I think, and that's probably as good a testimony as any to how impactful The Dark Knight was, that it's still the movie to beat as far as superhero films go. But yeah, so that's a 5-star movie, and I think that is going to do it for us here on the Best Movie Podcast Ever. We've gone, well, as long as I expected us to be honest, but slightly longer than usual. And that's going to lead us to just answering one simple question, as we always do, and that is, Anthony, what is your favourite movie this week?
My favourite movie this week is The Dark Knight.
Yeah, I'm not fucking around this week either. Sometimes we go for Joker. I feel like since we've been doing this Batman one, a lot of the answers have just been, it's the movie we've just watched. That's not that's not the spirit of this. But I'm going to say The Dark Knight as well for this one, because it's such a good movie.
I was tempted to say David Brent, Life on the Road, but I quit that after 20 minutes. So
okay. But what a 20 minutes that was. I've not watched it. I shan't be watching it anytime soon. I think it's safe to say. Okay, so thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. Check out links to their stuff down in the description below. And thank you to you for joining us. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already. We're the Culture Cave on YouTube, and we are the Best Movie Podcast Ever on podcasting apps. Get involved in the comments. Let us know how much you love The Dark Knight. If you don't love The Dark Knight, get out. Just get out. Don't come back.
No, how have they sat through that?
Yeah. No, you can make comments as well. You're allowed to. And give the show a like if you would be so kind. It really does help. And we will see you same time, same place next week.